Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashrotarashata Shishimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashrotarashata Shishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavindam Ki Jai. Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Yamunamai Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to the sum of devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for being here. We will now read Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 1, entitled The First Step in God Realization. And we will be studying from text number 34. Three? Yes. So from the word for word, Nadyaha Asya Nadyaha Ata Tanu Ruhani Mahi Ruhaha Vishvatanoho Nripa Indra Anantaviryaha Shvasitam Matarishva Gatihi Vayaha Karma Gunapravaha. So Nadyosya Nadyotat Nadyosya Nadyotat Tanu Ruhani Mahi Ruha Vishvatano Nripendra Anantavirya Shvasitang Matarishva Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha. Nadyosya nadyo tatha tanuruhani Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra Anantavirya Shvasitang Martirishva Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha Nadyosya Nadyo Tatanuruhani Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra Anantavirya Shvasitang Martirishva Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Nadyo Shanadyo Tatanuruhani
Syanadyo Tatutanuruhani
Mahi Ruha Vishwatanor Nripendra
Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra
Anantavirya Shvasitang Matarishva
Anantavirya Shvasitang Martarishva
Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Nadyosya nadyo tatanuruhani
Nadyo Sanadyo Tatanuruhani
Mahi ruha vishvatanor nripendra
Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra
Anantavirya shvasitang matarishva
Anantavirya Shvasitang Matarishva
Gatir vaya karma guna pravaha
Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Nadyosya nadyo tatanuruhani
Nadyo Sanadyo Tatanuruhani
Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra
Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra
Anantavirya Shvasitam Matarishva
Anantavirya Shvasitang Matarishva
Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Nadyo Syanadyo Tatanu Ruhani
Nadyo Sanadyo Tatanuruhani
Mahi Raha Vishra Tanor Niprenda
Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra
Anantariya Svasitam Matarishva
Anantavirya Shvasitang Matarishva
Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Nadyo Sanadyo Tatanuruhani
Nadyo Sanadyo Tatanuruhani
Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra
Mahiruha Vishvatano Nripendra
Anantavirya Shvasitam Matarishva
Anantavirya Shvasitang Matarishva
Katir Vayam Karma Guna Pravaha
Gatir Vaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Nadyo Sanadyo Tatanurutani
Nadyo Sanadyo Tatanuruhani
Mahirudha Vishvatanur Nependra
Mahiruha Vishvatanor Nripendra
Anantavirya Swasitam Matarishva
Anantavirya Shvasitang Matarishva
Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha. Anyone online? Okay. Nadyaha, the rivers. Asya, of him. Nadyaha, veins. Ata, and thereafter. Tanuruhani, hairs on the body. Mahiruhaha, the plants and trees. Vishvatanoho, of the universal form. Nripa Indra, O king. Anantaviryaha, of the omnipotent. Shvasitam, breathing. Matarishva, air. Gatihi, movement. Vayaha, passing ages. Karma, activity. Guna pravaha, reactions of the modes of nature. Translation. O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. Purport. The personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive, as is poorly thought by some schools. He moves with the progress of time, and therefore he knows all about the past and future, along with his present activities. There is nothing unknown to him. The conditioned souls are driven by the reactions of the modes of material nature, which are the activities of the Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.12, the modes of nature act under his direction only, and as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind the activities is the supervision of the Lord, and thus the Lord is never inactive as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do personally, as is always the case with superiors, but everything is done by his direction. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In the Brahma Samhita 5.48, it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universes and the planets within the universes exist is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchallengeable Virat Purusha. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of Godhead without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 12.5, it is stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the supreme truth are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the impersonal form. The personal form. Nadyosya nadyo tatanu ruhani mahiruha vishvatanor nripendra anantavirya shvasitam matarishva gatirvaya karma guna pravaha. Translation. O king, The rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. So some persons are saying God is dead. Some persons are saying God is void. There is no God. We are God. All these things, Prabhupada came to tell us, all these are nonsense. You know? And he was prepared to argue with any man, any rascal who wanted to propose like that. He was ready. Of course, Prabhupada's expert at using his time and energy in Krishna's service. So he knows when to fight and when in a certain way and when to fight in another way. But he's always waging war. The pure devotee is always waging war against the material illusion. And Sri Shukadev Goswami is doing so with this descriptions. So as was mentioned previously, we've been touching on this many days now, but this, and Prabhupada mentioned it again in the purport here, that this whole description of the personal, that all these wonderful aspects of the material universe, which we can perceive, can be conceptualized as the necessary aspects of a person. So we know I have a body. In my body, there's veins. I am a person. When we hear Shukadev Goswami, he's describing the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. The trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. I take breath. We can understand that, you know. So what's interesting is that the pure devotees, they use analogies. Of course, this is something a little bit different. Prabhupada hasn't used that, as far as I understand. He hasn't used that word in the purports. But in general, we try to think of things on the material platform because we ourselves are materially contaminated. We have a material conception, so we can conceptualize things from that point of view. We have experience of the sun. So when an analogy is given to something which is beyond our knowledge, based on something that we do have an understanding of, then we can get a hint of that spiritual concept, which is actually beyond our present intelligence, our present understanding. And actually, so some analogies are given. As I mentioned, Prabhupada isn't using the word analogy here in these purports. This is Shastra. So this is a fact. And it has to be taken like that, as was stated a few verses before, that there was some, one can have a, yes, it was the verse, it was a purport to text 30, chapter 2, canto 2, chapter 1, text 30, where Prabhupada mentions that maybe it seems that there's something contradictory in these descriptions. And Prabhupada describes in that purport that we cannot apply our common sense to such descriptions in one sense. That because it's the statement of the Shastra, it must be accepted. And actually, there's no room for common sense in the injunctions of the Shastras. That's Prabhupada just says that. Now, that's kind of interesting statement. Because we're thinking, if it doesn't line up with my common sense, then how can I accept it? But that's called faith. And Maharaj explained very nicely that so many things that we hear in the scripture make complete sense according to our perspective from where our limited consciousness. And when we hear such things and we apply them, we get faith. And then when it comes to things like the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body of the Virat Purusha, or the Virat Rupa, or this Vishvarupa, this universal form of the personality of Godhead, material manifestation, then we say, well, okay, I don't quite understand how it's a fact yet, but let me keep going. I'll keep practicing what I do have faith in, and I won't deny it, and I won't stop practicing because something didn't quite make sense to me. Because as we understand, I'm practicing bhakti yoga. I'm interested in this path because I'm completely perplexed. I have no idea how to be happy. Literally zero idea. Everything I tried has been terrible. You know? Except, you know, even when I was going to say love, but then I said, even when I try to love somebody, the result is still terrible. Right? But when I try to love Krishna, then I automatically love everyone more than I had before, of course. Not that I love Krishna, or not that I love others at this stage, but this is my situation. I'm perplexed. So I'm trying to judge something with my limited perspective. So better that I say, okay, well, I have faith in these things which I've heard. They make sense to me. Not everything makes sense to me, but let me continue. So that was that point. Then back to this, that the Lord knows everything. So the passing of the ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of nature. So I was mentioning that he knows everything, past, present, and future. And some people think that somehow this contradicts the concept of free will. You know, but just because he knows doesn't mean he is not allowing us to do what we want. He knows what we're going to do, but it's not that he doesn't allow us to have free will. What's very interesting is that the Lord is satisfying the desires of all living entities from time immemorial. So he's the eternal. This was stated. Maharaj quoted this verse. I think it was just yesterday. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman. I think that was it. Maybe I missed one word. That he is the one person who's satisfying the desires of many. Eko means one, like echo. Eko bahunam. Bahu means many. Bahunam, of the many. This one for the many is satisfying all the desires. Come on. So whatever we desire, Krishna will give it somehow or other. And according to what we deserve, that's important. Not past what we deserve. He keeps his rules in check. So material nature is always making sure. But we can act on using our minute free will. Essentially, you can boil it down. The choice is two. Shall I try, or shall I endeavor to satisfy my own senses and be under the control of Maya, or shall I try to satisfy the Lord's senses under guidance of the bona fide spiritual master? shastras and devotees and be under the control of the devotional energy. So we're always subjugated. And you can see that, you can analyze that. Everybody is always subjugated. Everybody. Even like a big prime minister, he's subjugated by his young nephew or his grandson who rides him like a small horse, right? And he has to serve the people. He has to spend all his time slaving away for the government when actually he wants to be voluntarily under the control of his young nephew, who is never satisfied with how fast he's galloping. He'd rather do that, actually. So similarly, that's the biggest man that we can imagine, heart, pretty much. Everyone's always subjugated. So we're either we choose. That's a choice. That's our free will, but it changes into so many varieties of things. You know, so many varieties of desires are coming out of that one desire to satisfy my own senses. That's called kama. And prema is the opposite, which is the desire or to satisfy Krishna's senses. So as is mentioned here in the purport, it's all done by his direction. Just like a big man is not present personally doing all the activities in the factory, but everything is happening under his eye. You know, similarly, everything is happening under the empowerment and the watchful eye of the Supreme Lord. And, you know, Prabhupada mentions that without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. So if we want to deny the Lord, or if we want to deny his personality or deride him, then he will not reveal himself to us. I think it's Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavritaha Mudho Yang Nabijanati Loko Mam Ajam Avyayam. That I'm never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I'm covered by my eternal creative potency, Yoga Maya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. So Krishna revealed many of these things in the Gita, ways to see him through something we can understand and experience. And Shukadev Goswami is also elaborating here. And this is very important. Maharaj mentioned before that more or less this is like the first step. And Prabhupada entitled the chapter just that, the first step in God realization. So we can think of these things and we'll become gradually purified to understand higher topics. Aturnath Prabhu.
Hey, thanks for the class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. This is on the point of like the contradiction, the seemingly contradictory things that are being stated. So we come to accept the scriptures, the shastras, as factual eventually. And, you know, for instance, one of these scriptures that I've come to accept is Ishopanishad being, you know, completely factual. And I'm just, I guess, trying to get a little satisfaction here. A question came up, my intelligence kind of thought of the Ishopanishad verse, where I think it's 8, he's saying, it's stated that the person is without veins. And then here in Srimad Bhagavatam, it's stating that his veins are the river. So I'm wondering, is like a explanation for this, Ishopanishad is describing the personal form of Krishna being without veins, and then this is a description of the Virat Rupa, or the impersonal, more or less, form being with veins. We can see the rivers as veins to remind us of Krishna.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure about, I wouldn't be able to answer quite, convincingly, but we do understand, and we can look at that purport that, and we hear from Prabhupada, I think in other purports, that Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the avatari, or the source of all emanations and the source of all incarnations, he doesn't actually have veins. There's no need for veins to, as we were hearing, actually, an interesting point. So I'll just talk around it. I won't be able to give a factual, conclusion. But yesterday we were hearing, right, in Bhagavad Gita, that the heart is where the supersoul resides. And along with the supersoul is the atomic soul, who's 1/10,000th the tip of a hair in the heart. And when the blood passes through that area, consciousness and life is, or that potency is transferred to the blood, which carries life to the whole body. And so we can understand that this is a wonderful creation by Krishna and secondarily Lord Brahma to make this whole arrangement. But the Lord doesn't need that, because his entire body is spiritual, Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. So there's no need for his, for that spiritual potency to be spread throughout the body through some material means. His whole body is spiritual. So those were just some small topics.
So these descriptions of the impersonal form, are these more or less like things that we can use to remind us of Krishna, or are they like worshipable in themselves? Kind of like, what is that? It starts with a P, I think. Who worship like the Lord, or like they worship like the universe as God, or the nature as God. What is that called? Yeah, paganism. Or pantheism. Yeah, one of those two. I think it's pantheism.
Yeah. Yeah, this is, these descriptions are meant to renovate our consciousness. So actually our vision is informed by our consciousness, like how we see something is informed by our consciousness. So like we see this vision and consciousness is, or vision and attitude, these things are connected. Just like I'm thinking about Junior Haridas. So Junior Haridas, or Chota Haridas, he was one great servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a close associate. And with the attitude, or with the consciousness to enjoy through the senses, according to the scripture, he glanced upon a woman. And because of that, then he was rejected by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Maya, or illusion, is this forgetfulness of Krishna. So whenever we look at something which is material, this whole practice of Bhakti Yoga is to learn to see Krishna there personally, our most lovable object on the soul platform, who we really are. Our most lovable object is none other than Krishna, the personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And So this is meant to renovate our consciousness, which will change our vision, like, so we will see the same thing as everyone else sees. But somebody who has material consciousness sees it as for their pleasure. Oh, big mountain? Okay, for my enjoyment. Big river? Nice. Let's float and drink. Right? But the devotee says, oh, that's the veins of the Virat Rupa, which is this temporary manifestation, which is a temporary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who actually is maintaining this whole thing by his presence within the material universe as the Supersoul, who actually is an incarnation or an expansion of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, from whose navel comes Lord Brahma, and who rests in the halfway point on the universe, which is shaped like an egg, which is just a small portion of air, which is coming out of the pore of Mahavishnu while he lays in the causal ocean, which has actually just been impregnated with the spiritual potency by the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So like that, we can go and on. Then we say, and there's innumerable spiritual planets, Vaikuntha planets in the Paravyoma, spiritual sky, which are all being manifested and maintained by Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. So then we go like that. Thank you so much, Prabhu. But, and it's nice for us to go like that, all the way from bottom up to we see and we draw that connection up, because actually that's what the Bhagavatam does too. Starts with, we should understand this. That's the first step in God realization. You should understand how this material manifestation is none other than his energies. And then on, we learn about the Vishnu incarnations in the first canto, and like that. There's so many pieces of the puzzle. And so, yeah, thank you. You had something? Okay. What? Yeah, maybe you can give a reflection. Here, use that mic though. That one. If you like. I'm not forcing you, but yeah, anyone else? It's for your purification and my purification and everyone's purification.
Well, I don't know if it's a reflection, but the way they describe like the veins being the rivers, it's like it fits perfectly. Because like, you ever seen those pictures like from above, and it's like a river, and then it's like a big river, and then like it spreads into like little ones, and then they show a picture of like our veins and stuff like that. And it's a perfect description, I guess. And it's so easy to understand it like that. To realize the immensity of Krishna or God, or yes.
Very nice.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Please accept my respectful obeisances. Okay.
Please accept my respectful obeisances. Okay. Thank you so much, devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam ki